Chuyue, a notorious foolish and ugly woman in the Shenwu Empire, indulged in promiscuity with others and gave birth to wild children. On the day of his fiancée's wedding, he jumped off the city wall wearing a wedding robe and died for love. With her beautiful eyes open for the first time, the master of the ancient martial arts sect from the 21st century will stir up a bloody storm, shedding all previous shame. Waste. Shake the empire with bare hands, step on the world with one foot. Stupid. Plan and strategize, and win a decisive victory thousands of miles away. Wild child. The son of Emperor Zun, with the bloodline of the emperor, who dares to be reckless when looking at the 8 wildernesses. Mother, there's a handsome big brother outside who says he's my dad. Let him take the money to the back and queue up. One day, Emperor Zun gave a sinister smile and said, I heard you've been telling people everywhere that I'm dead. Chapter 1. The Day of Wedding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bang. Chuyue fell with a splitting headache, lying in a pool of blood on the ground. While carrying out her mission, she was pushed out from the 30th floor building by her companions, afraid of falling to pieces. Unexpectedly not dead. Sounds ring in the ear. Even if the fools of the Yi family seek death, they don't have to jump down from the city gate, do they? It must have been intentional. The crown prince got married today, but she actually broke the engagement. At least she is also a legitimate young lady of the Yi family. How could she do such a thing? Her death is a small matter, but it would be unlucky to implicate the Yi family. Chuyue frowned and looked around, suddenly stunned. The crowd gathered, dressed in antique costumes, pointing at her, either angry or mocking. A bright red wedding procession stopped in front of the city gate. A handsome man riding a red steed and dressed in a robe, with a gloomy face, glared angrily at Chuyue. Like facing the enemy who killed his father, his gaze was as sharp and pressing as a knife. In the wedding sedan in the rear, a pleasant voice came from. Your Highness, why did you stop? Shenwu face softened a bit and he whispered, It's nothing, there's a dead dog blocking the city gate. Ah. The woman whispered softly, That's really unlucky. Your Highness, hurry up and drive it away. Chuyue gave a slight twitch at the corner of her mouth. Is this dead dog among the male population talking about her? She is a prominent martial arts sect leader who has crossed the 21st century and become a dog blocking the way. At this moment, Chuyue had a splitting headache, and a memory that did not belong to her flooded into her mind. Chuyue, the third miss of the Yi family, was originally a genius. She had been engaged to Prince Shenwu since childhood and had an affair with someone 5 years ago, giving birth to a child whose father was unknown. Afterwards, he suddenly became crazy and foolish, often going to the crown prince's mansion to find his beloved, and every time he received a beating. Today is the day of the crown prince's wedding, and I am so heartbroken that I jumped out of the city gate with the intention of dying. However, by chance, I shattered Shenwu's wedding procession. Leaving such a mess for her to take over is really a headache. Shenwu looked disdainfully at Chuyue, a tattered shoe that had already been ruined, and had the delusion of getting his finger on it. Immediately, the opponent signaled, and 2 imposing guards walked up to Chuyue, shining sharp swords with a cold gleam, pointing at her in the pool of blood. Chuyue stood up slowly with her hands on the ground, her white dress dyed red with blood. At first glance, it was shocking. The onlookers were stunned, unsure of what this fool was going to do, while also being amazed by her tenacious vitality. Is this not dead? Chuyue stood in front of the galloping horse, with a smile on her blood-stained face. Shenwu furrowed his brows and became angry with embarrassment. He didn't know what this fool was going to do again. Like a dog's skin ointment, he couldn't shake it off for 5 years. The wedding sedan once again heard a soft and ethereal voice. Your Highness, it's almost auspicious time. Hasn't that dead dog been dealt with yet? Xian Yuanshan drank coldly and said, "Drive her away." The swords in the hands of the guards approached Chuyue, revealing a fierce light in their eyes. As the guards were about to take action, Chuyue smiled brightly and spoke clearly, "Zun Yuanshan, your engagement with me has not been terminated yet. Are you busy getting married so quickly?" It turns out that the crown prince can ignore secular rules. There was silence all around, and everyone was gasping for air. If it weren't for Chuyue's reminder, they would have forgotten about the engagement. If you are merciless, I will rest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xian Yuanshan was stunned for a moment, his gaze slightly condensed and he spewed out flames. He shouted angrily, "Chuyue! Are you trying to die? What are you talking nonsense about?" Chuyue stood calmly in front of the city gate, jokingly looking at Xian Yuanshan who was in chaos. Xian Yuanshan met Chuyue's displeased eyes, frowned, and then drew his sword to point at Chuyue, saying, "Believe it or not, this palace has killed you. To do something, one must have a beginning and an end. Your Highness, do you think so?" Chuyue's voice was quite hoarse. As she spoke, she walked forward, and the swords of the guards followed her forward. Chuyue paused and lifted her hand to grab the royal flag in the welcoming procession. With a gentle tug, she tore it off. Xian Yuanshan stared intently at Chuyue, like the people around him, unsure of what Chuyue was going to do. I saw Chuyue's fingertips stained with blood, writing a few words on the snow-white flag. "Zun Yuanshan, from now on, walk half the way up the road to the sky, and men's marriages and women's marriages are irrelevant." Chuyue raised her eyes and said in a slow voice. The people around were even more stunned. Chuyue stopped the wedding procession just to terminate the engagement. Moreover, Chuyue's performance does not seem like the rumored dementia fool. "Chuyue. 5 years ago, you had an affair with someone and gave birth to a wild seed. Do you, as someone like you, deserve to mention your engagement to this palace?" Xian Yuanshan drank profusely, with red eyes. Does this fool know what he's doing? Chuyue's eyes were bright and clear, revealing an innocent and harmless smile. She clenched her fists and loudly said, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince, is newlywed. Congratulations. I wish your Highness infertility and a family full of children and grandchildren." After speaking, Chuyue threw the flag to Xian Yuanshan and took advantage of everyone's negligence to walk towards the city gate. Xian Yuanshan lowered his head and saw 2 large characters on the white flag. "Xiao Shu." Xian Yuanshan's eyes were about to crack, and his anger was raging. He crushed the flag and stared at Chuyue's back. "Huff. Never heard of it. Is Chuyue also compatible? Stop this slut." Xian Yuanshan was furious and shouted, "Kill her in this palace." A clanging sound sounded, and the sword was drawn out of its sheath. The sharp weapons pointed at Chuyue from all directions. Chuyue's figure was slender, with bruises all over her body. The blood flowing from the wound soaked her clothes and dripped down her sleeves. The crimson blood made the onlookers in front of the city instinctively hold their breath. She looked back and smiled, her deep and cold eyes casting a faint glance at Xian Yuanshan. She straightened her spine and looked coldly at the guards around her, drinking softly. "Who dares?" Chuyue took out a gilded token from her arms, raised it high, and raised her blood-stained lips. "Those who see this order are like seeing the former emperor." The dazzling golden light flickered in everyone's eyes. The people in front of the city knelt down one after another, and the royal guards who welcomed each other looked at each other, staying still and looking at Xian Yuanshan for help. Xian Yuanshan rode on the fiery red steed and was stunned when he saw the token of the late emperor. The girl in front of him had all terrifying scars on her cheeks, but she had a pair of bright and clear eyes that were teasing him. For a long time, her red lips lifted lightly and she said calmly, "Kneel down." "Chuyue, you." Xian Yuanshan was furious. Chuyue raised the token of the late emperor in her hand, and Shenwu was filled with anger, but had to bow down before the late emperor's authority was severe. The tall man dismounted from his horse and knelt down in the direction of Chuyue, feeling very humiliated. Before and after the city gate, a crowd of black people knelt on the ground, and the girl stood proudly dressed in blood clothes. Chuyue shook her head, lowered her hand, and dragged her tired body into the imperial capital city. Shenwu stared at her back, her eyes covered in crimson blood. A murmur of chatter gradually echoed in front of the city gate. Miss Yi-san is taking a break. She even took out the imperial token. Who says Chuyue is a fool can do such a thing. Didn't she love His Highness the Crown Prince so much? How could she still? You don't understand that anymore, it's called, play to get. If you love the Crown Prince, will you still have children with wild men? Such a promiscuous woman should be struck by heaven and lightning. Chapter 4. Immortality. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Yi Siyu's palm, full of spiritual power, is about to fall on Xiao Bao's head. Xiao Bao's body trembled for a moment, and he was so scared that he clenched Chuyue's sleeve and closed his eyes tightly. He only sneaked out when he heard that his mother had an accident. He is worried about his mother, however. The pain did not come, and Xiao Bao slowly opened his sparkling eyes. I saw Chuyue's slender and blood-stained 5 fingers gripping Yi Siyu's wrist, her eyes sharp and cold, filled with a bloody and murderous aura. With just one glance, I asked Yi Siyu to take a step back. Click. Chuyue's wrist turned slightly and suddenly broke, breaking Yi Siyu's wrist. Ah! Yi Siyu screamed out in agony. Yi Siyu, if you dare to bully my son again, I will chop you up, Chuyue said coldly in her voice. Sister, how could you treat Siyu like this? Father will definitely punish you when he comes back, Yi Ningyan exclaimed, her eyes slightly red. It's so noisy. Chuyue's voice was clear, and she glanced sideways at Yi Ningyan. Yi Ningyan suddenly fell silent like a cicada. Yi Ningyan's heart suddenly trembled a few times as she met her eyes, which were as calm as a cold pond. The servants around were dumbfounded, staring at her in shock. Is this still the fool who would embarrass the Yi family? Xiao Bao suddenly froze and looked at Chuyue's purple eyes, flashing a bright light. Yi Ningyan's heart was full of doubts. After a day without seeing her, Yi Chuyue's temperament changed greatly, different from her previous foolishness. What are you all doing in a daze? If you don't catch this trash for me, I'll have my dad peel off her skin. Yi Siyu covered his broken wrist, his eyes crimson, and shouted at the top of his lungs. The servants and guards around stepped forward one after another. Chuyue raised her chin slightly and raised the imperial token. Do you dare? Yi Ningyan's apricot eyes widened and slightly shrunk, her eyelashes trembling gently, looking at Chuyue in disbelief. A dozen or so people stood still, afraid to take a step forward. Yi Siyu gritted his teeth and said, Yi Chuyue, you're just a pair of tattered shoes that nobody wants. When Dad comes back, you must be okay. Sister, you were at fault in this matter, so please apologize to Siyu. Yi Ningyan said urgently, moreover, the marriage alliance between the two countries has been disrupted by you. Neither the Emperor nor His Royal Highness will spare you. Is that right? Chuyue raised her eyebrows and said, will you not let me go, or will you? You can easily understand the matter of bribing the city guards. Instead of pretending to be here, it's better to think about how you will survive next. Chuyue chuckled lightly and led Xiao Bao away. Yi Siyu let out a sigh of disgust and said, this foolish thing, it's clear that she's not dead in her heart and wants to frame you for it. Yi Ningyan, however, was restless and suddenly panicked. Her hands tightly clenched under her sleeve, biting a bite of silver teeth. Her crimson eyes glared fiercely at Chuyue's back. Did falling off the city wall damage Yi Chuyue's brain? However, Chuyue's words reminded her that the top priority was to erase the traces of bribing the guards. On the path of the mansion, Xiao turned his head and looked at Chuyue puzzled. "Mother, why did you remind her?" "To kill her," Chuyue said with an innocent smile, "both young and old. Dare to plan on her, only the dead in the underworld." Xiao blinked his eyes and felt a chill. Then he saw the blood shirt on Chuyue's body and asked, "Mother, you've shed a lot of blood. Do you feel any pain?" "I can't die." Chuyue touched her chin and calculated the assets left by the original owner of her body. Those assets were all taken over by Lady Yi, and it was time to return them. Xiao pursed his tender red lips tightly, hesitating to speak, his little brain filled with doubts. My mother seems to have changed. But he really likes such a mother who doesn't know how to hit him, scold him, and even hold his hand. Chapter 5. North Tower of Yi Mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The northern building of Yi Mansion is even more remote and rudimentary than the residence of the servants, with leaking eaves and tattered window papers. It is a place that is cold in winter and hot in summer. If it encounters wind and rain, one may suffer some kind of punishment. And here, it is the place where the original mother and son rely on each other. Chuyue stood in front of the north gate, looking at the door that was creaking in the cool wind, lost in thought. The mother of the original owner was the first young woman to be granted the title of Marquis in the kingdom of Shenwu. She was also a well-known and renowned iron-blooded general who had accumulated remarkable achievements. He sacrificed his life for his country in a fierce war, and as a Shenwu vassal, he was the only person with the honor of having his body buried in the imperial tomb after death. When the former emperor was alive, he handed a green glass and red gold token to the young Chuyue, which can be considered as Chuyue's amulet. Due to the relationship with his mother, the Marquis of Zunbei, even if Chuyue, who lived 5 years ago, was falsely accused and fell into disrepute, the royal family was not qualified to terminate the engagement, and the Yi family dared not expel the daughter of the martyr from the mansion. Later, Chuyue was foolish, and others pretended to be deaf and mute. No one expected that at the important moment of the marriage between the two countries, Chuyue would run and jump off the city wall. "Mother," the soft and sticky milk voice pulled back Chuyue's thoughts. She furrowed her eyebrows lightly, her deep pool-like eyes like ink that couldn't be melted. "I cooked your favorite lily porridge for you. Is your mother hungry? You should eat it while it's hot." Xiao whispered. The child remains obedient as always. Once upon a time, even if Chuyue beat him to pieces, he would obediently prepare his meal, wash his clothes, and follow his mother without complaint or regret. Chuyue responded lightly, glanced at Xiao, and asked, "Why are you crying?" Xiaobao's eyes flickered with tears, and he bit his lips lightly. He looked at Chuyue for a long time before saying, "They told me that my mother went to jump off the city wall and didn't want me anymore. From now on, Xiaobao will have no mother's children." Chuyue let out a light sigh and slowly reached out to rub Xiaobao's hair, saying, "Am I still alive?" She has been a decisive god in both worlds, dealing with fugitives and never dealing with children, let alone her nominal son. Chuyue stared at the pitiful and stubborn little treasure, feeling quite chaotic in the wind. "She doesn't even know what it feels like to be a man, but my mother is injured." Xiaobao's eyes slightly turned red and he choked up. Xiaobao is still young now. When he grows up in the future, he must protect his mother well. He is such a well-behaved child, but unfortunately he had the wrong pregnancy. Chuyue led Xiaobao into the house in the north building, and finally understood what it meant to be penniless, with a family on all sides. This rudimentary house made her doubt that it would collapse to the ground when the strong wind came. Looking inside, there were tables, chairs, benches, and a bed covered with straw. Xiaobao ran over and filled a bowl of lily porridge. He put it in front of Chuyue and looked at her expectantly. "Mom, drink quickly." "Don't you drink it?" Chuyue asked. Xiaobao shook his head and said, I'm not hungry. Gulu. Gulu Xiaobao's stomach made a noise out of frustration. Xiaobao's cheeks turned red and he said confidently, Mother, I'm really not hungry. I've already eaten it. There were only 2 bowls of lily porridge in total. My mother was injured, so he wanted to leave them all to her. Chuyue gazed at the shredded meat and lilies in kanji. Chapter 9. Breaking the father-daughter relationship. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yi Ningyan paused and stared blankly at Chuyue's back. Is Yi Chuyue crazy? Does she know what she is about to face? Subsequently, Yi Ningyan's eyes flashed with a grimace. This fool is simply digging his own grave. Without her help, he can't survive. Sitting on the green sandalwood chair, Yi Haipeng saw Chuyue and felt a moment of confusion. The last time I saw this child was a few years ago, when I knelt at his feet covered in blood, tears streaming down my face, begging him to believe. He kicked the girl away and angrily said he didn't have such a dirty and disgusting daughter. From then on, he heard that Yi Chuyue had become a fool. Bold. Yi Haipeng looked at the young girl standing in the center with her head held high and her chest erect, feeling displeased. She shouted angrily in a deep voice, Uncle Seven, are you here? How could you be so arrogant? Why don't you kneel down and salute? Chuyue smiled and looked at Yi Haipeng, who was in a fit of anger. Her gaze swept over Uncle Seven, with a confident glow emanating from her eyebrows. Her red lips moved lightly, and she spoke confidently, back then, my mother was crowned a martyr. When the late emperor was alive, he gave me a green glass token and publicly said, after being a martyr, when I see the nobles of the imperial family, there is no need to pay homage. May I ask Master Yi, why do I kneel? The sound of Master Yi pierced Yi Haipeng's heart. He is Yi Chuyue's biological father, but she calls him the head of the Yi family in a strange and distant way. The others in the mansion were stunned, their eyes filled with disbelief. Is this really the crazy Yi Chuyue? You. Yi Haipeng was so angry that he felt dizzy, angrily pointing at Chuyue, almost vomiting blood. Chuyue, how did you talk to your father? Madame Su Linglong looked at Chuyue displeased and poured a cup of tea for Yi Haipeng. Master, the child is still young and doesn't understand anything. Don't take it to heart. I think she has intentions. Yi Haipeng stared at Chuyue. You have made a huge mistake and you don't know how to repent. How could I, Yi Haipeng, have a daughter like you who is so reckless and foolish? 5 years ago, didn't Lord Yi cut off my father-daughter relationship with me? Chuyue casually spoke, as if talking about an extremely ordinary matter, without any ups and downs in her tone. Yi Haipeng, Su Linglong, and the house full of members of the Yi family, breathing rapidly, looked at Yi Chuyue with a surprised expression on their faces. If Master Yi forgets, I don't mind mentioning it again. Chuyue lifted her soft jade hand, tore open her sleeved shirt, and took out a rusty dagger to strike fiercely in her palm. Blood flowed down the palm of the hand, droplets of blood falling to the ground and splashing, like the Manju Sha Hua blooming by the banks of the forgotten river. Taking blood as an oath and cutting off my robe as a witness, from now on, I have no connection with the Yi family leader, no longer have any father-daughter relationship. Even if the Yi family leader dies on the street without anyone asking, I will never go to collect the body. Blood droplets are falling. The girl's burnt cheeks burst into a cruel smile. Those eyes were like wolves in the jungle, mocking her prey. The people in the house were so surprised that they couldn't speak, feeling like they were separated from each other. Su Linglong, however, gave a gloomy smile as she lowered her gaze. The next moment, Su Linglong pretended to be panicked and scolded, Chuyue, how could you say such a heinous and immoral thing? That's your father. Aren't you afraid of being criticized by the world? Bastard. Why talk so much nonsense to this rebellious girl? Without rules, there is no way around. As the head of the family today, I will teach you a good lesson. Yi Haipeng picked up the teacup and fiercely smashed it onto Chuyue's forehead. The cold light in Chuyue's eyes was fleeting, and just as she was about to take action, a gentle breeze suddenly brushed past and returned the thrown teacup to Yi Haipeng's hand. After a long silence, Uncle Seven spoke up and said, "Master Yi, Miss San is a martyr's queen, so this is not good." Chapter 3. Mother, do you not want Xiao Bao anymore? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yi Chuyue straightened her spine and walked towards the direction of Yi Mansion. The blood-stained skirt swayed lightly. Chang'an Street is covered in bloody footprints all the way. Her body is about to weaken and she must return to the mansion for treatment now. What gave her a headache was that the original owner left a child for her. Even the father of the child doesn't know who it is. In front of the mansion, a small figure walked out and saw Yi Chuyue. Her eyes lit up. Mother. The soft and sticky little milk sounds joyfully. The little baby walked with her short legs and came to Yi Chuyue's side, kicking and kicking. The little hand nervously tugged at Yi Chuyue's sleeve and looked up at her with tearful eyes. Mother, you're injured. Don't you want Xiao Bao anymore? A pair of enchanting purple eyes, shining like gemstones, with a hint of watery light. At first glance, they looked pitiful, but they were also filled with a noble aura that could not be concealed by thick clothing. During the years when the original owner was foolish, it was Xiao Bao who took care of her. And her heart was filled with resentment, especially against Xiao Bao, who punched and kicked every day. Not only that, Xiao Bao's life in the mansion was also full of ups and downs, not even as talented as a slave. He was a wild seed that was beaten by a single person. Yi Chuyue looked sympathetically at Xiao Bao. A child in dire straits will take over early on. Mother. Xiao Bao shouted again, is it Xiao Bao who made mother unhappy? Yi Chuyue extended her hand to Xiao Bao, who looked at her in confusion. Yi Chuyue let out a light sigh and lightly grasped Xiao Bao's hand, leading him into Ye's mansion. Xiao Bao's eyes trembled slightly, looking at Yi Chuyue incredulously. This is the first time my mother has led him. The first time. I didn't drive him away. Xiao Bao grinned brightly and said, Mother. Why? Yi Chuyue looked at him impatiently and rolled her eyes. She has been a person for 2 generations, without even a man, so she has to take care of children. In this world, who should I argue with? You're so kind. Xiao Bao's eyes were sparkling, shining like cold stars. Yi Chuyue's heart trembled slightly as she walked forward calmly and muttered, children are the most annoying. She thought to herself that the child was born well and should be able to sell for a good price. The maidservants and servants in the mansion were shocked and stunned when they saw Yi Chuyue holding Xiao Bao. Yi Chuyue is a crazy fool who hates Xiao Bao more than anyone else. She often beats and scolds Xiao Bao, and has never been so close before. Do you have the face to come back, you corrupt and fickle person? The sound of coquettishness suddenly rang out. Chuyue frowned and looked coldly ahead. What caught the eye were 2 girls standing side by side, dressed in gorgeous long dresses. The maids and servants around gathered like stars and moons. The girl who spoke, with immature eyebrows and eyes, was about 12 or 13 years old, but had a domineering aura. She is the youngest and most favored daughter of the Yi family, Yi Siyu. Siyu, don't blame her. A graceful and gentle voice sounded, and another girl took small steps and came to Chuyue's face. How can you run out of the mansion? The girl held Chuyue's hand, her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she was about to cry. She whispered, Sister, when Dad comes back, I will definitely blame me for not keeping an eye on you. Chuyue withdrew her hand indifferently. Yi Ningyan, her half-sister and the 5th miss of the Yi family. If she remembers correctly, 5 years ago this body was promiscuous and closely related to Yi Ningyan. The reason why the original owner jumped off the city wall was also due to Yi Ningyan's instigation. Xiao Bao hid behind Chuyue, poked out his small head, and nervously looked at Yi Ningyan, his body trembling uncontrollably. In recent years, the original owner only trusted Yi Ningyan, and Yi Ningyan also used her because of the original owner's foolishness. Even the abuse of Xiaobao was a bad idea put forward by Yi Ningyan. Every time my mother meets this woman, she will pinch him hard and say that he is the unwanted child. Sister Wu, why are you talking nonsense to her? If you hadn't treated her well these past few years, she would have starved to death somewhere long ago. Yi Xiu was arrogant and domineering, and when he saw Xiaobao hiding behind Chuyue, a fierce aura appeared on his eyebrows. He stepped up and raised his hand, ready to hit Xiaobao, saying, "Little miscellaneous, didn't you kneel in the spiritual hall to ponder? How did you sneak out? I think you wanted to be kicked out of Yi Mansion." Chapter 10. Overturning a Harrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uncle Chi Huang's voice is warm and elegant, like a clear spring in the mountains. He smiled slightly, but remained calm and confident. Yi Haipeng held the white jade teacup that had been returned, his expression slightly stiff, and there was not a single drop of tea leaking from the cup. "Prince, this rebellious girl is not worthy of being the daughter of the Marquis of Zhenbei. The reputation of the Marquis of Zhenbei has been tarnished by her." Yi Haipeng was heartbroken and said, if the Marquis of Zhenbei had knowledge under the spring, he would definitely die and be restless. Moreover, the neighboring countries are eyeing my divine martial arts. Without the help of Dongyang, I am afraid it will be turbulent. And all of this is because of this ignorant rebellious woman. Only by sending her to Dongyang can we quell the princess's anger. After pondering for a while, Uncle Chi looked at Chuyue with a glass-like gaze and asked, "Miss San, why do you want to destroy the alliance between the two countries?" Yi Haipeng furrowed his brows. Yi Chuyue's purpose was obvious, and he didn't understand why Uncle Seven still asked knowingly. Everyone knows Yi Chuyue's thoughts and feelings towards Xian Yuanchen. It must be because she is unwilling that she went to destroy him. Chuyue's eyes were shrouded in a cold mist, and she looked at the man sitting in the main seat for a long time. Suddenly, she picked up a slender little finger and pointed it at Yi Ningyan, who was gloating without warning. She said innocently, "She asked me to go." "Yi Chuyue. You're talking nonsense." Yi Ningyan's heart quickened and she quickly looked at Uncle Seven, shaking her head frantically. "Prince, Yi Chuyue is full of lies. This matter has nothing to do with me. She is trying to clear her name. You admire Crown Prince Chen and don't want to see him marry Princess Dongyang, so you instigate me to block the alliance," Chuyue said sharply. Yi Ningyan's heart sank into a low valley and anxiously defended, "Yi Chuyue, don't spit blood on me. It's clear that you are coveting Prince Xian Yuan." Chuyue shrugged and said, "I'm already someone with children. Why do I covet him? Everyone. A righteous sentence, but I always feel like something is wrong." Chuyue arched her hands and faced Uncle Seven, bowing her head and saying, "Yi Ningyan's boudoir houses a portrait of Crown Prince Chen, which can be easily traced. Over the years, I have relied on her assistance to survive, so she begged me and I went to block the marriage alliance between the two countries. Prince, I have no power in the mansion. Relying on a useless body, I want to walk up the city wall safely and unimpeded. It's a foolish dream. The prince can strictly investigate the guards guarding the city to see who bought them off and who wants to erase the traces afterwards. My mother, the Marquis of Zhenbei, is the protector of the country and the god of war. She has the highest merit as a divine martial emperor. Many years ago, she even led troops to capture 13 cities in Dongyang. As her descendant, I went to Dongyang to apologize. Isn't it the great G of the slippery world? Uncle Seven might as well investigate the truth and send the culprit Yi Ningyan to Dongyang Kingdom to avenge her death and quell Princess Dongyang's raging anger." The whole place was silent, with needles falling from all around, only the sound of breathing between each other. On a peaceful night, the girl dressed in plain clothes exuded a strong and proud aura, with a 3-inch tongue that could rival 1,000,000 strong teachers. She analyzed everything thoroughly, but no one could refute it on the spot. "Yi Chuyue, you're so ruthless!" Yi Ningyan shouted, lifting her palm to hit Chuyue's face. Chuyue was as fast as lightning and quickly grabbed Yi Ningyan's wrist, mercilessly folding it. Click! Yi Ningyan's wrist was completely dislocated, causing tears to splash in pain. "What, are you getting angry from embarrassment?" Chuyue asked slowly, but like a demon. Chapter 8. Confession and 3 Trials. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sister, there's an accident. Dad is back. Yi Ningyan gathered her expression and hurriedly rushed into the north building. Chuyue had changed into a plain long robe and glanced at Yi Ningyan indifferently. Yi Ningyan gasped for breath and said anxiously, "The marriage alliance has come to an end." The princess of Dongyang Kingdom took off her phoenix crown and returned home. When the emperor learned about today's incident in front of the city, he became furious and scolded his father in front of civil and military officials, saying that he would drive both his father and Yi Mansion out of the capital of Dongyang. "What should I do? Dad asked me to call you over, intending to interrogate today's matter, and then send you to Dongyang Kingdom to apologize and win the princess's forgiveness." The incident also alarmed Uncle Seven, who personally came to Yi Mansion to watch the interrogation process. Yi Ning's eyes sparkled with tears like mist, but deep in her eyes was a cunning joy. She put in a lot of effort and hardships to destroy the alliance between the two countries. The crown princess of Shenwu Kingdom can only be her. "Xiao Bao, stay at home and wait for me to come back," Chuyue lightly pinched Xiao Bao's cheek. "Mother, don't." As Chuyue stood up and walked outside, Xiao Bao's chubby little hands anxiously grabbed Chuyue's sleeve and raised her small face, pitiful. "Will I still love him when my mother comes back? He is afraid." "Don't be afraid, if I want to live, even the king of hell wouldn't dare to take my life." Chuyue pulled out a sleeve and walked outside, ignoring Yi Ningyan in front of the door. Yi Ningyan stomped her feet and quickly followed. As they walked out of the north building, 2 sword guards with spiritual energy were waiting for a long time. "Miss San, I would like to invite you, my lord." Chuyue stepped out of her slender legs and straightened her spine. The guard was slightly stunned, thinking that he had a hallucination. "The night is deep, and the moon and wind are clear. As soon as I approached the lobby of the Yi Mansion, I heard a woman's crying voice. 'Master, Chuyue has committed a promiscuous act. You left her in the mansion considering the love between father and daughter, but she almost caused our Yi family to be executed by the whole family. If the Dongyang Kingdom were to use divine weapons, then our Yi family would become the sinners of the country. The 100-year reputation of the Yi Mansion would be destroyed in her hands. Seventh Prince, we never expected that dead girl to be so bold.' The woman looked at the handsome man sitting in the main seat. The man's eyebrows and eyes were painted, clear and graceful like the wind, and his hands and feet were lifted, revealing a natural and elegant temperament. He casually picked up the white jade teacup, took a light sip, and then casually said, 'Your third miss, after all, is the Marquis of Zunbei. It's Chinner who ultimately took her down.' Bang! The head of the Yi family, Yi Haipeng, hit the table with his calloused palm. He looked at the extraordinary man and said, 'Prince, don't worry, I will give an explanation to the Shenwu Kingdom and my emperor about this matter.' The man's voice was full of vitality, like a thundering bell. Uncle Chi Huang smiled but remained silent, as gentle as jade. 'Master, Madam, Miss San is here,' said the guard outside respectfully. At the moment, the room was completely silent, as the legitimate and collateral members of the Yi Mansion looked out the door. The girl was dressed in a plain white and clean long gown, with 3,000 strands of green hair scattered casually. Although her cheeks were covered in hideous and ugly burns, it was difficult to conceal the beauty of countless things. That body is as pure as dust, as fierce as a lion, making it unforgettable upon sight. Uncle Chihuang's hand holding the tea-cup paused slightly and looked over in surprise. He only knew that the third miss of the Yi mansion was foolish and crazy, with a seemingly salt-free appearance. Tisk, it's lively. Chuyue came step by step with lotus flowers, chuckled lightly, her bright eyes shining brightly, and looked wearily at the people in the hall. Is that all you have in chapter 14? You are listening at novelfull.audio. A playful smile spread on Chuyue's lips, as she had expected. Yi Haipeng knew it well, but he dared not. Yue, why don't you come back to Tingxue Xian later? It's not urgent at the moment. Su Linglong smiled kindly, but she was calculating in her heart that if she could delay time, she must deal with Yi Chuyue as soon as possible. Within today. Chuyue no longer looked at Su Linglong, whose face was as black as a pot, and boldly walked out of the lobby, following the corridor back to the north building. Not urgent. Those who once practiced her had to pay a price one by one. It was night, with a gentle breeze blowing by, and the branches and leaves rustling in the garden. In front of the quiet corridor, there was a cool pavilion surrounded by snow gauze. The faint and serene sound of the qin rang out, like a heavenly melody. Under the moonlight, a pair of hands, like green jade, were plucking the strings of the qin. Chuyue stopped and looked towards the Qinliang pavilion, half narrowing her cold eyes. Inside the pavilion, a beautiful woman with a delicate face and a refined demeanor, dressed in a long snow gown, stopped playing the piano and looked coldly at Yi Chuyue. Do you want to listen to Shueishuan? She asked. Chuyue put her hands around her chest and lazily looked over. Yi Ruoxue, the first genius of the Yi family. It's your honor to have my belongings with you for a few years, but now it's time for them to return to their rightful owners, Chuyue said lightly. Are you compatible? Yi Ruoxue said coldly, a useless person who was kicked out of the Shenxian Academy, and a promiscuous woman who shames the Shenwu royal family, are they also worthy? Chuyue's eyes were slightly condensed. Before the original owners of the body, Dantian and Wugen, were shattered, they were undoubtedly the first geniuses of this continent. They were invited to the Shenxian Academy, and for a time, their glory was limitless. Even the Shenwu royal family had to bow in front of her. Unfortunately, the tiger fell to the surface and was expelled from the Shenxian Academy. The Shenwu royal family did not want her as the crown princess, and allowed Yi Ningyan and others to manipulate her, causing her to be targeted by countless people. If Miss Yi is dissatisfied, she can go to Uncle Seven's mansion. This is an order from the royal family, and contempt for imperial power is a great crime that affects the 9 families. Can't you bear it? Chuyue leaned against a pillar on one side, lazily like a fox, without any regard for Yi Ruoxue. In just a few words, I put a high hat on Yi Ruoxue. Yi Ruoxue looked at Chuyue coldly for a long time and sneered softly, I didn't expect you to be pretending to be crazy and foolish, hiding your strength and concealing your past 5 years. Yi Ningyan is really a useless thing. I thought I was holding on to you. It seems that 5 years ago, I shouldn't have spared your life with great compassion. Yi Ruoxue threatened in a low voice, in the future, stay away from Uncle Seven, otherwise the chaotic burial mound on the outskirts of the city will be your cemetery. You are not my opponent, and if you want to survive, it's best to be an obedient dog. Yi Ruoxue's delicate snow-white cheeks revealed a disdainful smile. Chuyue remained calm and composed. Her Dantian and Wugen were deposed, and according to fragmented memories, it should be related to Yi Ruoxue. At that time, the original owner only trusted Yi Ruoxue. However, Yi Ruoxue's foray into the Shenxian Academy ruined her future and earned her admission ticket to the academy. Yi Ruoxue, if the 7th prince finds out about the dirty things you have done, will he still take a glance at you? Beat the snake and hit 7 inches. A sentence from Chuyue pierced through Yi Ruoxue's soul. Chuyue gave her a mocking glance and then walked towards the north building. Behind her, Yi Ruoxue's face was covered in a cold forest. Stop! Yi Ruoxue scolded. The Chu moon is as if unheard of. Seeking death. Yi Ruoxue plucked the strings with both hands, and the two red sword killing sounds rushed horizontally towards Chuyue's back, like the light of a knife. Enough to take Chuyue's life. The wind and clouds of Chuyue were light, and the Shenwu ring in his fingers emitted a faint milky white light. I saw the red blade killing sound hitting Chuyue's back, like a punch on cotton, with no effect. How could? Yi Ruoxue frowned tightly, her eyes full of confusion. Is that all you have? Chuyue turned her back to her, her voice like a ghost. The next moment, the red blade killing sound that collided with Chuyue's spine became even more powerful, turning back and charging towards Yi Ruoxue. Yi Ruoxue was caught off guard, and both Ren and Qin were knocked to the ground, leaving several bloodstains on her collarbone. Even two ribs were broken. Yi Ruoxue was furious and bit a silver tooth, her eyes bloodshot. Chapter 11. Great Righteousness and Destruction of Relatives. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A girl in a plain dress, neither humble nor overbearing, with cunning eyes, like a Shura from Joyo. Looking around, everyone was shocked. Yi Haipeng's sword eyebrows, slanted into his temples, furrowed fiercely, puzzled. Yi Chuyue is a useless body, with all her dantian and martial roots destroyed. However, Yi Ningyan has refined her body to the third level and has no ability to resist in front of Yi Chuyue. Yi Haipeng carefully detected and found that Yi Chuyue still had no spiritual power fluctuations on her body, relying solely on her own strength. Su Linglong suddenly screamed and her eyes turned slightly red. Yi Chuyue, Ning Yen is your legitimate younger sister. How could you treat her like this? Chuyue tightly grasped Yi Ningyan's hand and looked at Su Linglong with a mocking expression. She sneered, it's just an illegitimate person, and is also worthy of being a legitimate lineage. If my mother, the Marquis of Zunbei, is still here, will it be your turn to occupy the magpie's nest in the Yi mansion and guide us? My concubine is my concubine. Chuyue's words were resounding and powerful, completely piercing Su Linglong's heart. Her hand under her sleeve was clenched into a fist, and her sharp nails were deeply embedded in her flesh. For so many years, she has always lived in the shadow of the Marquis of Zunbei. That woman is the god of the divine martial empire, an existence that she cannot match in her lifetime. Chuyue Song let go of her hand, and Yi Ningyan collapsed to the ground, crying bitterly. Dad, Prince, you must believe me, Prince, please investigate thoroughly. Chuyue's voice was clear and cold, interrupting Yi Ningyan's words. Uncle Seven stared for a long time, nodded, waved, and the royal guards outside hurriedly walked over, obeying Uncle Seven's orders to thoroughly investigate the matter. Yi Ningyan has rapid breathing and cold limbs. Soon, the royal guards returned and brought several paintings and a man in black. The royal guard replied, Prince, these paintings were all found in Miss Yi Wu's room, and they are all portraits of the crown prince. At this point, the royal guards carried the man in black forward and forced him to kneel on the ground. This person's name is Zhang Quan, and he is one of the guards guarding the city today. He was preparing to escape from the suburbs when he was discovered by the royal family. In his personal bag, he found Miss Yi Wu's jade pendant. Su Linglong frowned tightly, her face turned pale, and she glared fiercely at Yi Ningyan. She was so clever all her life that she gave birth to such a foolish thing. Yi Ningyan's expression was flustered and incoherent. She thought Yi Chuyue would become the scapegoat, that's why she left so many handles. After all, no one will take a fool seriously. Prince, it was Miss Wu who instructed me to do this. She told me that all I needed was for Yi Chuyue to go up and take a look. The man in black who was brought was lying on the ground, hastily shirking his responsibility. Yi Ningyan shook her head wildly. No, it's not like that, Yi Chuyue, it's you, it's all you. Yi Ningyan climbed up to Yi Haipeng's feet and pointed to Chuyue, Dad, if you believe me, it's all her who's trying to harm me. Yi Haipeng's face turned pale and furious. He glanced at Uncle Seven and his heart pounded fiercely. He suddenly kicked Yi Ningyan in the face, causing her to fly backwards and shatter her organs. Dad! Yi Ningyan's head broke with blood, and she widened her eyes as she looked at her father, who usually loved her the most. The evidence is conclusive, do you still want to argue? Yi Haipeng angrily said, the reputation of the Yi family will be destroyed in the hands of you, an unfilial woman. Someone, tie up this scoundrel, pull him down, and beat him severely on the 40 boards. Then he will be sent to Dongyang Kingdom to redeem himself and repent.